every spy sent to watch you ended up protecting you instead. Think about that. Really sit with it. They came with clipboards and suspicion, with orders to document your weaknesses, catalog your failures, measure the distance between who you are and who you claimed you'd become. They came to watch you fall. They stayed to make sure nothing could touch you. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's something else entirely. You know what happens when someone studies you long enough? When they're forced to pay attention to every choice you make, every reaction you have, every time you get knocked down and choose to stand back up? They start to see something. Something that wasn't in their briefing. Something that doesn't fit their narrative about you. They see the pattern beneath the chaos. While everyone else gets the highlight reel, the carefully curated version of your life that you show the world, these watchers get the raw footage, the 3 a.m. moments when you're still working and everyone else gave up hours ago, the times you failed and no one was there to witness it except them, the private victories that never made it to social media because they were too small, too personal, too real. And somewhere in that observation, something shifts. The spy becomes the guardian. The critic becomes the advocate. The person sent to document your downfall starts taking notes on your uprising instead. You want to know why? Because authenticity is magnetic in a way that performance never will be. Because consistency compounds in ways that talent alone cannot. Because the person you are when no one's watching is the only person that actually matters. And these watchers, they saw that person. They saw you on the days when quitting made perfect sense, when every logical argument pointed towards surrender, when the smart money was on walking away. And you stayed. Not because you're stubborn, though you are. Not because you're too stupid to know when you're beaten, though they probably thought that at first. You stayed because you made a decision about who you were going to be. And you decided that decision wasn't up for negotiation. That kind of resolve doesn't inspire admiration from a distance. From a distance, it looks like insanity. It looks like someone who doesn't know when to quit. But up close, when someone's actually paying attention, when they see the micro decisions, the tiny recalibrations, the constant evolution happening beneath the surface, up close, it looks like inevitability. And that's what turns a spy into a shield. Think about the people who were supposed to expose you, the ones who came looking for cracks in your foundation. Maybe they were competitors studying your weaknesses. Maybe they were doubters waiting to say they told you so. Maybe they were just curious observers wondering how long you could keep up the act. What did they find instead? They found someone who wasn't acting. Someone who wasn't pretending. Someone who'd already looked at their own darkness and decided to build something there, instead of running from it. You know what's terrifying about that? You become impossible to undermine because you've already done that work yourself. You've already cataloged your own flaws. You've already measured yourself against your own standards and found yourself wanting. You've already had the brutal conversations with yourself that others hoped to ambush you with. So when they show up with accusations, you've already prosecuted yourself. When they arrive with criticisms, you've already been your own harshest judge. When they try to expose your weaknesses, you've already weaponized them into strengths. There's nothing left to exploit. And that's when the shift happens. That's when the person who came to document your destruction realizes they're watching something else entirely. They're watching transformation in real time. They're seeing someone who treats failure as data, criticism as calibration, pain as information. They came expecting a collapse. They found a forge instead. Now here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the psychology gets dark and beautiful and strange. When someone watches you long enough, when they pay that level of attention, they become invested. Even if they started as an adversary, even if their original intention was to celebrate your failure. Because humans are wired for narrative, and you're writing a better story than they anticipated. They can't look away. And something happens in that sustained attention. They start to see the threats you don't see. They start to notice the traps being set for you. They start to recognize patterns in the chaos around you because they've been studying you so intently that they've accidentally become experts in your ecosystem. The spy becomes the scout. The watcher becomes the watchman. They find themselves warning you about things they were supposed to let destroy you. They catch themselves rooting for you when they meant to root against you. They discover they're protecting you from dangers you don't even know exist. And the wildest part, you probably don't even know they're doing it. You don't see the conversations they're having on your behalf, the rumors they're shutting down, the traps they're dismantling, the attacks they're diverting. You're too busy doing the work to notice the invisible infrastructure that's been built around you by people who started as observers and became guardians. That's not something you can engineer. That's not something you can manufacture with charm or strategy or manipulation. That only happens when who you actually are is compelling enough to override someone's worst intentions towards you. Let that sink in. Your character was strong enough to reprogram your enemies. Your consistency was powerful enough to convert your critics. Your authenticity was magnetic enough to turn surveillance into protection. But here's the question that matters. What does that make you? Because this isn't happening to everyone. This isn't the default human experience. Most people have watchers who stay critics. Most people have spies who compile exactly the evidence they came looking for. Most people's enemies remain enemies because there's nothing in the sustained observation that contradicts the initial assessment. So what's different about you? Is it that you're better than them? No. That's ego talking, and ego is boring. Is it that you're working harder? Maybe. But effort alone doesn't inspire conversion. Plenty of people work themselves to dust and die with an audience of indifferent observers. No. What's different is that you made a choice about suffering. You decided that pain was going to mean something, that failure was going to teach you something, that every betrayal, every setback, every moment of isolation was going to be converted into fuel instead of letting it be converted into bitterness. You alchemized your damage, and people can sense that, not consciously maybe, but somewhere in their gut, they recognize when they're in the presence of someone who's been broken and chose to reform themselves into something harder to break next time. That's not inspiration, that's intimidation. The good kind. Because now you're not just someone with dreams and goals and ambitions, you're someone with proof. Proof that you can take a hit, proof that you can adapt, proof that you can lose everything except your decision about who you're going to be. And somehow, that's enough to rebuild from. The people watching you aren't protecting you because they like you. They might, but that's not why. They're protecting you because you represent something they need to believe is possible. You're evidence that transformation isn't just a story people tell themselves. You're proof that consistency compounds, that character matters, that the person you decide to be in the dark actually determines what happens when the lights come back on. You became their hope without trying to inspire them. And that's more powerful than any motivational speech could ever be. Now let's talk about what this means going forward. Because this isn't just about celebrating some poetic irony. This is about understanding the mechanics of what's happening, so you can amplify it. You're operating in a different reality now, one where your former adversaries are accidentally building infrastructure around you. One where the people who were supposed to document your weaknesses are instead cataloging your evolution. One where attention that was meant to harm you has been converted into protection without you even asking for it. That's a hell of a position to be in. But it comes with responsibility, because now you're not just responsible for your own transformation. You're responsible for protecting their belief that transformation is possible. Every time you compromise on who you said you'd be, you don't just let yourself down. You let down everyone who bet on you when betting against you made more sense. The spies who became shields did that because they saw something consistent in you, something reliable, something that didn't change based on audience or circumstance or convenience. You have to protect that, not for them, for you, because the moment you start performing your transformation instead of living it, the moment you start doing things for the watchers instead of doing things because that's who you decided to be, that's when the magic breaks. That's when the shields remember they were supposed to be spies. That's when the protectors remember they were sent to observe your destruction. That's when the narrative collapses and you're left with what you always feared, an audience that confirms your worst suspicions about yourself. So the question becomes, can you handle this level of invisible support without corrupting it? Can you keep being the person you are when no one's watching, even though you now know that someone is always watching? Can you maintain the authenticity that converted your critics while being conscious of the fact that your authenticity is what's doing the converting? That's the paradox you're living in now. Most people never get to this paradox. Most people are still trying to convince their first critic, still trying to prove to their first doubter, still trying to earn protection instead of accidentally inspiring it. But you're past that. You're in stranger territory now. You're in the place where your continued evolution matters more than your initial transformation, where maintaining momentum is harder than building it, where the work gets more subtle and more crucial and less visible all at the same time. The spies are protecting you, but who's protecting you from complacency? Who's making sure you don't start coasting on the infrastructure that's been built around you? Who's ensuring that you remain worthy of the guardianship you accidentally inspired? That's all you now. And here's the dark truth about that. It's lonelier at this stage, because the people protecting you are doing it from a distance. They're not your friends. They're not your team. They're people who are invested in your success for their own psychological reasons, and that investment is contingent on you remaining the person they think you are. You can't let them down, because if you do, you lose more than their support. You lose the belief system they built around watching you. And humans get vicious when you destroy their belief systems. So you're trapped in a kind of excellence now, trapped by success in a way that's more binding than failure ever was. Because when you were failing, you could always quit, you could always walk away. You could always say it wasn't meant to be, and most people would nod and agree and forget you existed. But now people are invested. Now there's infrastructure. Now there are spies who became shields who are counting on you to keep being worth protecting. You can't walk away from that without consequences. Does that feel heavy? Good. It should. This isn't a motivational moment. This is a reckoning with what you've built and what's been built around you and what you're responsible for now, whether you ask for it or not. The question is, are you equal to it? Can you handle the weight of invisible support? Can you maintain the authenticity that inspired protection without becoming paralyzed by the awareness of being watched? Can you keep evolving when you know that evolution is being documented, analyzed, and used as evidence that transformation is real? Because here's what happens if you can't. The spies remember they were sent to watch you fail. The shields realized they were defending someone who didn't deserve defense. The infrastructure collapses, not with a bang, but with a quiet withdrawal of support. And you're left standing in the rubble wondering why everyone walked away. But if you can handle it, if you can carry this weight without letting it crush you, if you can maintain your evolution without performing it, if you can stay authentic while being conscious that authenticity is what's protecting you, then you become something rare, something dangerous, something that can't be stopped by conventional means, because every attempt to stop you accidentally converts your enemies into allies. Every effort to expose you just reveals someone who's already exposed themselves to themselves and came out stronger. You become anti-fragile, not just resilient, not just tough, but improved by attempts to harm you, strengthened by attacks, protected by the very people sent to destroy you. That's not a superpower. That's a character achievement. That's what happens when you decide who you're going to be, and you defend that decision against all internal arguments to compromise. And the beautiful, terrible truth is this: you can't fake your way to that position. You can't perform your way there. You can't strategize your way into having your enemies accidentally protect you. You can only become the kind of person who deserves that paradox by being that person when it makes no sense to be that person. By holding your standards when no reward is coming. By maintaining your character when no one would blame you for compromising it. The spies became shields because they watched you do that over and over and over until they couldn't deny what they were seeing. You wore them down with consistency. You converted them with character. You transformed them by refusing to be transformed by circumstances that should have broken you. And now you're here. in this strange space where you're protected by people who don't like you, but can't help respecting what you've become. Defended by observers who started as adversaries but ended as advocates. Shielded by critics who found they couldn't sustain their criticism in the face of your sustained effort. So what do you do with that? You keep going, not because you have something to prove, you're past that. You keep going because stopping would be a betrayal of everyone who bet on you when betting against you was safer. You keep going because the person you decided to be doesn't stop just because the watching eyes turn friendly. You keep going because that's who you are now. And every day you show up as that person, you strengthen the infrastructure around you. Every time you choose character over convenience, you reinforce the belief systems built by your former adversaries. Every moment you maintain your standards, you justify the shields that were once spies. That's your life now, living in a way that makes conversion inevitable. Being the kind of person who transforms watchers into guardians just by being consistently, authentically, relentlessly yourself. Most people will never understand this. They'll never know what it's like to be protected by people who meant to harm them. They'll never experience the strange security of knowing that even your enemies can't help but defend you once they pay close enough attention. But you know you're living it. And the darkest truth of all, this is just the beginning. Because once you understand the mechanics of how this happened, once you realize that authenticity weaponized through consistency is more powerful than any strategy, once you grasp that becoming unconditionally yourself is the strongest form of protection that exists, you stop playing defense entirely. You stop worrying about who's watching. You stop calculating how to win people over. You just become, fully, completely, without apology or explanation, and the world arranges itself around that. The spies become shields. The critics become advocates. The watchers become witnesses to something they can't deny, even when denial would be more comfortable. You didn't plan this. You didn't strategize this. You just refused to let circumstances determine your character. And that refusal created gravitational pull strong enough to bend the trajectories of people who started as opponents. That's not motivation. That's physics. And you're the force at the center of it. So tell me, now that you understand what you've done, now that you see the infrastructure that's been built by your consistency, now that you realize you've converted your surveillance into protection without even trying, what are you going to do with that power? Are you going to maintain the authenticity that created it? Are you going to protect the character that inspired it? Are you going to keep being the person you are when no one's watching, even though someone is always watching now? Or are you going to let the awareness of your own impact corrupt the thing that created the impact? Because that's the final test, the ultimate paradox. Can you remain unconsciously powerful once you're conscious of your power? Can you stay authentic once you realize your authenticity is your greatest weapon? Most people can't. Most people start performing the moment they realize they have an audience. They corrupt the very thing that made them worth watching. But you're not most people. If you were, the spies would have stayed spies. The watchers would have compiled their evidence and moved on. Your enemies would have remained enemies because there would have been nothing in the sustained observation to contradict their initial assessment. But that's not what happened. What happened was alchemy. What happened was transformation, not just of you, but of everyone paying close enough attention to you. What happened was the rarest form of power. The kind that doesn't require force, doesn't require persuasion, doesn't require anything except the sustained decision to be exactly who you said you'd be. That changed everything. That converted the watchers. That transformed the spies into shields. And now you have to decide if you're strong enough to carry the weight of that transformation without being crushed by it. If you're secure enough to maintain your authenticity while being aware of its power. If you're committed enough to keep being that person when the watching eyes multiply and the stakes get higher and the consequences of failure become more visible. Because here's what no one tells you about this level. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. The standards get stricter. The margins for error get smaller. The audience gets larger and more invested and more likely to turn on you if you compromise. You're walking a tightrope now, and the tightrope is your own character. Fall to either side, start performing, start compromising, start letting the weight of observation change who you are, and the infrastructure collapses. But stay on the rope. Keep walking forward with the same authentic consistency that converted your critics in the first place. Then you become unstoppable. Not because you're strong, though you are. Not because you're talented, though you might be. You become unstoppable because you've created a reality where even your enemies work for your protection. Where observation meant to harm you accidentally shields you. Where the simple act of being consistently yourself creates defensive infrastructure without you lifting a finger. That's the place you're in now. That's the power you wield. That's the responsibility you carry. Every spy sent to watch you ended up protecting you instead. Not because you convinced them, not because you won them over, but because you were too authentic to deny, too consistent to ignore, too committed to your own evolution to be dismissed as performance. You alchemized their attention into armor without trying to. Now the question is, what are you going to do with an army you never recruited, protecting you from battles you didn't know you were fighting? The answer better be, keep being exactly who you were when they were still spies. Keep evolving at the same rate you were evolving when they were documenting your failures. Keep maintaining the standards you held when no one thought you'd make it, because that's the only way this story continues. That's the only way the shields stay shields. That's the only way you remain worthy of the invisible protection that's been built around you by people who started as adversaries and ended as accidental allies. You're living proof that character compounds, that authenticity weaponizes, that the simple decision to be exactly who you are, consistently and without apology, is more powerful than any strategy ever invented. Don't waste that. Don't corrupt it. Don't let the awareness of your power diminish the power itself. Just keep walking. Keep evolving. Keep being the person you are when no one's watching, even though everyone's watching now. The spies became shields because of who you were in the dark. Stay that person in the light. And watch what happens next.